Hi, everyone, and thanks so much for joining us today. It's really nice to see so many people here. Super excited to see so much interest in finding a job in sustainability and making this a part of your career. Honestly, that is what gives me the most hope in this awful climate crisis is how many people are starting to get more involved and step up. And so I'm just grateful and thankful and excited to see so many folks here. Um, I also just want to quickly go over the agenda in broad strokes, and then we will dive into some introductions and get this conversation going. Um, so, just briefly, what we're going to be talking about today is we have Evan Hynes here. He's the founder of Climatebase, and he'll do a brief intro in a little bit, but super excited to be speaking with him. We're going to be talking about Climatebase, how it's designed and structured, including why their partnership with Project Drawdown matters and helps make them unique, especially in kind of the level of quality of jobs that we're looking at that really helps set them apart. We're also going to dive into what I'm most excited about, which is Evan's advice on finding a job in sustainability and how the website can help with that. And then we're hoping to end with some Q&A. So along the way, please type in any questions you have. And we're hoping to get to those about 40 or so minutes in and then wrap up around 3:50. So I'll start with a quick intro and then pass it over to Michaela and then Evan, and we'll dive in. My name is Ryan Hagan. And again, apologies, you can't see me right now. But the main thing you need to know about me is that I'm a huge sustainability nerd. And I started a nonprofit called Crowdsourcing Sustainability. And our mission really is to help reverse global warming as quickly as possible. And we're doing that by informing people, empowering them, and inspiring folks to act on climate as much as possible. So that's kind of what brings me here is providing you with these resources and information and really getting as many brains as possible working on these problems because I think it's the most important thing to be working on right now. So that is me, and now I'll pass it over to Michaela.
Hi, everyone. My name is Michaela, and I am a student at UC San Diego studying environmental policy and climate change studies. So lots of environmental stuff. I grew up in Northern California, and I spent my childhood hiking through the redwood trees. So I've always been a huge fan of the environment and wanting to protect Mother Earth. So that's why I'm doing this.
Awesome. Hi everyone. My name is Evan. I'm from Berkeley, California originally. Went to school down in UC Santa Barbara. So Michaela, fellow UC student or alumni, I should say. I started Climatebase because should I just dive in right now or?
Yeah, I mean, this is why it's the perfect segue. I'd love to hear like this origin story. Why did you decide to start it? Kind of just what sparked the idea initially, and what made you actually pursue it? Because I know I have tons of ideas, but there's only some that you actually jump into. So like, what made this different and special in your mind?
Yeah. So basically, I started this platform because I needed it myself. My story is kind of started off my professional career in the corporate world, doing enterprise technology sales. Quickly realized that I wasn't particularly interested in that kind of career path, and that for me, like I was just looking for something that had a little bit more meaning to it. Not to say that you can't derive meaning from selling great software and at the enterprise level. I mean, for me it was like, okay, well I really need to like take a step back and think about what do I really care about. So I kind of bounced around. I did 3 years at an early stage startup that had graduated Y Combinator, and they're still doing really well. And in that organization, I was basically helping students kind of like find their early career path. And what I was seeing there is that a lot of students wanted to develop technical skills so that they could really have more of an impact. So not just like, what I was seeing is that a lot of students weren't just interested in learning how to code to make money, but they were actually wanting to learn how to code to do something with those skills that could be really meaningful as well. And I definitely resonated with that mission. After 3 years at that startup, joined another small startup that was more politically focused. After my contract expired, I had also paid off my student loans. I took off, like a year and a half to travel. And I will say that, given what's going on now in the world, I am happy that I did take that time off when I did. Coming back from that experience, I was really hungry to sink my teeth into something new. And I just didn't really know where to get started. I knew that I wanted to do something that was environmentally impactful. I was feeling like I had done things that weren't really focused on that before. And that was an area that was probably of most concern to me personally, especially after traveling and like seeing so many different cities around the world. One notable experience was in Venice. I was in Venice, Italy at a time when there was like some flooding, and and literally being in a city that is sinking essentially, or rather not sinking, but rather sea levels rising, and seeing that, like, just how real this is. Most people don't live up in the Arctic, and we don't see glaciers, falling off into the ocean. So global warming is oftentimes, I think, for a lot of us, very removed. But I had a number of experiences where like it kind of like resonated with me more personally, me being in these places that are being impacted. Of course, the wildfires too was also another. And for those of you who are not from California, I'm referring specifically to the wildfires that we've had throughout California over the past couple of years. And in late 2018, and that summer, we had a lot of really huge, devastating wildfires, and so that was another like factor. And then I think what really drove me to like landing on climate change is the thing that I really want to focus in on was the IPCC report from COP24. That for me was not like a wake-up call, but really more of a call to action. I was already pretty tuned into like how bad things were. But that was like, okay, like, it was one of those, I hate to sound so cliche, but it's true. Like, it was, for me, the feeling was, if not now, when, and if not me, who? And, just seeing that the world is so off track from where we need to be heading. That was the moment where I was like, okay, climate. But I just didn't know where to get started. So I was looking at like, green job boards, environmental job boards. And what I was seeing is that a lot of these platforms weren't really what I was looking for. The main issue that I was seeing is that most job platforms generally run on keyword search. So if you go to Indeed right now, or you go to LinkedIn and you type in climate change or climate, you're going to pretty much exclusively find opportunities that have that keyword listed. But as I was learning more about climate change and I got introduced to organizations like Project Drawdown, it became apparent to me that a lot of the organizations that are actually leading the way on climate solutions, they don't even brand themselves as such. They, or at least, at the very least, their jobs oftentimes don't include climate in like the, in the title of the job or anywhere in the description. So
yeah, totally dependent on that keyword.
Yeah, so there's this like really unfortunate disconnect that happens. And that's just part of the limitations of keyword search. So Indeed and LinkedIn, they can do a lot of it, but they can't do it all, and they can't do it all really well. And then again, I was looking at these other sort of green job platforms, and what I was seeing was a lot of sustainability manager roles. But, the logos next to the job titles was like, BP and Exxon, and sort of companies that like particularly, didn't really resonate with me is the polite way, I'll say that. So there was this like branding disconnect there as well too. And then, other platforms I felt like were like green, but like by whose definition? like this kind of like ambiguous, like, if it feels green, it is green. And I just felt like there had to be a better solution. And what started off as a spreadsheet that I was basically using, where I was going to, I was looking at portfolio companies, from VCs, climate tech investors that, had an emphasis on climate solutions, and as opposed to adaptation, because that's really more of my interest area. And I was basically just like building out a spreadsheet of like, well, which companies are doing what sort of climate solutions and who's hiring. I felt like I skipped a key part of the story. So in this discovery process of like, how do I have an impact on climate with my skill sets? I got introduced to Project Drawdown, and that was like a really pivotal moment for me, because I was sitting in my friend's trailer up on his like farm, and he literally hands me this book, and it says like Drawdown across it. He's like, you should take a look at this. And I'm like, well, what is this? And I'm like flipping through, and obviously the subtitle really stood out to me. The 100, I think it's the 100 most impactful solutions to climate change. So something I'm forgetting. Yeah. But I'm like flipping through the pages of this book, reading about these different climate solutions, and immediately my question was just, who's working on these solutions and who's hiring. So that's like where that spreadsheet sort of came from. And then that spreadsheet turned into a career fair that we did a little over a year ago in San Francisco. We called it the Climate Career Fair, fittingly. It was me, my brother, my friend Julie, and a couple other folks that, we were all just helping out, volunteering to make this thing happen. We thought we would be lucky if like 200 people showed up. We had like 700 people RSVP. It ended up being really uncomfortably packed, actually.
Wow.
The kind of situation now where, like the health department and would have like, in these days in the post-COVID world would have like entered and immediately like shut the whole thing down. It was like uncomfortably packed, but, a good problem to have for a first-time event organizer. And the recognition that so many people wanted to come to this. Like, we had people driving it from San Diego to San Francisco to attend this event, which, like, for those of you who don't know, is like a 10-hour drive or something. Like, we were just like, okay, people really want climate jobs, and how do we take this in-person experience and scale it so that instead of reaching only a couple hundred people in a day, we can reach thousands of people every day from all around the world? And, really broad, like how do we do this at scale is basically the question. So, a job board is kind of the obvious answer to that question. And a couple months later, we put up a really ugly, kind of like a placeholder version of the website. Kind of like didn't even tell people to go to it because we just knew it wasn't like there. But in December, late December, we kind of like started really putting ourselves out there in select climate-focused like community groups online. And and since then it's kind of like just grown organically. I mean, as an organization, we're still unfunded, kind of gearing up to think like, what is the bigger picture of where this could go, because it could go in many different directions. We have some exciting ideas that we're iterating on right now. Meanwhile, our platform is growing organically. Like, I think we just passed 11,500 monthly active users. And I think to date, I think we've had just under 100,000 people like visit our website.
That's amazing.
Yeah, thank you. I appreciate that. I mean, look, it's my biggest piece of advice, like right now, if you want a job in climate or sustainability, is don't start a climate jobs board. It's a very challenging thing to do. But I figured someone had to do it. So that's what we're focusing on. And we're hoping that we can make this thing work. So far it's working, but the money piece is always the challenge. So
I think you'll get there. It's definitely providing a ton of value. Just anecdotally, real quick, I've perused this several times because I direct people to this when they ask about getting a job in climate. I'm like, this is the best resource I know of. Well deserved. But so I have some interns who are about to go back to school in the coming weeks, and so I just posted yesterday because I was like, we're having Evan on. I need this anyway. Like, I should check it out for like from the organizational standpoint, not a job seeker necessarily. But I posted it about 24 hours ago, the position, and already have 2 people reaching out. Nice. So just anecdotally, there's definitely a lot of traction. And I'm excited to see how this is useful for both parties, the climate orgs who need help and all these job seekers who want to do something more impactful with their work. I'd love to dive into this Drawdown partnership a bit more and just hear what that partnership looks like, how it informed the design and structure of Climatebase, and just your thinking overall.
Yeah. Well, I mean, I would say it's more of our partnership is more of I think a sort of a nod of the, what is it? The tip of the cap, nod of the cap. It's still early morning for me over here. Yeah, I mean, it's really more of a symbolic sort of partnership. It's us saying, hey, like, we were entirely inspired to start this thing and building a whole framework matching organizations to climate solutions and sectors. Like, this was inspired and really formed heavily by the research that Project Drawdown has done and their publication of that research. And so we were huge fans of Project Drawdown. I mean, their work is what helped us even start this thing. So them saying, hey, like, let's make it official, and putting it on their website that we're a partner of theirs. I think, more than anything, it's them just recognizing that, like, we're taking their research and applying it to something that is providing real value towards, individual people. I think most people interact with their research and, like, they have the book and it sits on their coffee, table, and, it's inspiring and it motivates them to take action. But then how do they actually take that action? I think is the next question that a lot of people have. Like, how do we take all this knowledge and apply it in not just like policy and at industry but like, how do I as an individual take climate action knowing this information? And so, we're focusing on one of those things, which is like, well, you can get a job, and we're going to help you find jobs at organizations that are working on climate solutions, leveraging the Drawdown research.
Gotcha.
Could you explain the term greenwashing and how Drawdown Learn interacts with that?
Sorry, did you say how Drawdown Learn?
So, or just Drawdown in general, they are dedicated to making sure that the organizations they work with are actually green and not greenwashing. So could you kind of explain the term greenwashing and what that means?
Yeah. So greenwashing is basically when an organization brands themselves in a way that tells a story about how sustainable or green they are, when really they are not, as they're not what they're saying they are. So I think there's no clear definition on what is and what isn't greenwashing. I think it's more of like a personal perspective. But like, broadly speaking, that is what greenwashing is when an organization says, hey, we're fighting climate change. But then meanwhile, like, they're selling their software to an oil company so that they can extract more oil more efficiently and make more money doing that. So sorry, does that summarize the?
Yeah, that's awesome. So it's really reassuring knowing that you're working with a partnership that ensures that these organizations are actually helping the environment in a positive way.
Yeah, I mean, and that's really why I felt like it was so important for me as a job seeker to go about it this way. Again, like, the whole website stemmed from just like, I needed this for myself. So you know, that's how I was getting around the greenwashing challenge, because there's a lot of organizations out there that say they're doing this and say that they're doing that. You know, I think consumer product companies are the best at this. Or the worst, depending on how you're looking at it. But, you know, they're really effective. They recognize that consumers and job seekers even care about how sustainable they are. And so they qualitatively try to prove that. You know, one of the things we're thinking about, like looking forward of what Climatebase could be in the future, is like, well, how do we come up with a better metric that could be applied to any kind of organization, and saying, hey, even if you're not climate focused, you have an opportunity to be more climate positive. And you know, will we be the Glassdoor for sustainability? Like, maybe that's one of the directions we're going in right now. But you know, without a really solid framework and a way of collecting really strong data on all of that, one of the easiest things we can do right now to direct talent towards organizations that are not greenwashing is by looking more at, like, well, what is the organization actually doing? For instance, like, if an organization is working on coming up with a novel refrigerant alternative, you know, something that would replace HFCs, well, like, you know, we have pretty strong reason to believe that as a organization that they are working on something that is a climate solution. Now, like, do we know exactly how effective they are at like scaling these solutions and like what their actual real world impact is? I mean, sometimes you just don't know that. And that's because, you know, some of these organizations we support are like so early that they have like a prototype, or they have a couple customers and they're just getting started. But I think for that reason, it's even more important that we channel more talent towards these organizations that are working on novel solutions or scaling existing solutions using, you know, novel business models, because we need to scale these solutions. Like, we have to like have smart people working at these organizations so that these organizations can succeed. So we look at really like the mission level, the technology, like the product level, like how does the organization make their money? Or if they're a nonprofit, what are they actually focused on? And, you know, we basically say, well, that alone is pretty good information to be able to say whether or not they are focused on climate solutions.
Yeah, I think that's a really smart way to go about it with the amount of info available. And going back to Drawdown, I was also thrilled when that book came out and just really opened my eyes to how many existing solutions there are today. Like, the technology is there. We just have to deploy it and scale that up, as you said. And I look at that as like, this is kind of a roadmap to the future of the economy. Once more and more people start to realize the urgency of this crisis, what is valued in society is going to shift more and more towards these sustainable solutions. So I'm just super excited that this exists. And like you said, there's definitely a lot of different directions you could take it, but I think it's a fantastic.
Well, thanks. I appreciate that. I mean, you know, I think one of the most exciting opportunities in the world of climate solutions and sort of the role that organizations, businesses have to play is not just in terms of like scaling or like coming up with like new solutions, but actually just coming up with innovative business models that allow like existing solutions to scale more effectively. You know, I think at the end of the day, like, the most important thing that we need is policy, because policy done correctly will create market pressures for organizations to decarbonize. And then, you know, whatever they can't decarbonize, you know, we need to like raise the bar on what it means for an organization to be climate impactful, climate friendly, climate positive. There's attempts being done right now by organizations to like, well, yeah, I won't get into that, but basically, like, the ultimate win is always going to be policy, I think, because that's how we create that's how you create a fertile ground for those new business opportunities, or rather, those new business models, those new climate solutions to like really explode. And like, honestly, a lot of what we need to do is just put a ton more funding, you know, towards climate solutions research too. I mean, like, that the fact that there's only like a couple $1 million in government grants going towards carbon removal technologies is concerning. I mean, it should be in the billions, and that's it's not happening right now.
Yeah, definitely tons of areas to improve on. I'd like to pivot real quick to kind of the meat of this, which is, what advice do you have for people who are in the midst of this search right now, or are starting to think about it more and more? Like, what are kind of the top few points that you would advise people think through, and any actions they can take?
Yeah, I would say, I mean, if you're like, whether you are early in your career or okay, well, hold on. Let me preface this answer with, I come from a startup background, like technology startup world. So my perspective on this is heavily influenced by the fact that like the organizations that I see that are doing really innovative stuff are, I mean, basically, like, I'm speaking in largely from my own perspective. So if I were to go back in time and Climatebase already existed as a resource and I was a job seeker, I would do a couple things. I would get more involved in grassroots campaigns, because for organizations that are in this space, like, they do care, of course, about mission fit. It's one of the reasons why people come to our platform, like companies come to our platform to hire, because they know that it's not just about having the right skills. It's also about, like, you have to like have the fortitude of like pushing through, because like, working any job, especially startups, is tiring and challenging. And the most important work in the world to do is usually not the easiest work either. So you have to be mission driven. And I think getting involved in grassroots campaigns in your area is one of the best ways that you can sort of showcase that. It's also going to be a great way to connect with other people who are already in this space and are already sort of the same mindset. So get involved in like local campaigns. I mean, we have, in the United States, we have an election happening right now. There's a ton of amazing stuff happening to kind of like corral all the different areas of like clean energy and climate activism, and like coming together basically to defeat Donald Trump, which I see as like being one of the biggest roadblocks towards any meaningful climate action. So that's like a big one. Get some quantitative skills under your belt too. Like, I'm not saying like everyone needs to learn how to code or like format data. And I just think that it's a helpful skill to have, and it's always going to set you apart from your fellow applicants if you're applying for a non-technical position. Like, having just a little bit of that goes a really long way. So like, if you have the time to pick up some quantitative skills, even design skills, honestly, are very important as well these days. Like, do that. Familiarize yourself with the climate landscape. I think one of the best ways to do that is like, I mean, shameless plug here, but like, go to our platform, click organizations, and just start browsing and seeing like, who's working on what kind of solutions in what sectors. I think like, okay. One final like thought is like, our logo at Climatebase is, you'll notice it's like, some people have told me it like looks like a weird hybrid of like the Slack logo and like the Microsoft logo. Some people have told me that it looks like a weird rainbow Celtic symbol. But what it actually stems from is the concept, the Japanese concept, ikigai. That's a Ikigai, if you want to look it up. Ikigai is basically the concept of, it most directly translates to like your purpose or your reason for waking up in the morning. It's like your life meaning kind of concept. It's the intersection of 4 key areas. So the first area is, what are you good at? So like, what skills do you have? And like getting some quantitative skills, like that's always a good mix to that piece, right? Then the other part is like, what do you like doing? So that could be like, maybe what you care about, what do you enjoy? But like, what sort of work gives you a sense of like happiness also? So not just what are you good at, but like what also like makes you happy? The third piece is, what can you get paid to do? And I think like in traditional Western sort of like job seeking advice, it's usually confined to those 3 areas. So it's like, what are you good at? What do you like doing? And what can you get paid? Like, what can you get paid to do? But the fourth I think is the most important, especially at this time in history, which is like, what does the world need?
Mm-hmm.
So what does the world need? What can you get paid to do? What do you like doing? What are you good at? And if you can like hone in on something that hits all four of those things, then you've achieved finding your ikigai, or one of your ikigais. I think it's really important to think about these things in a particular order. So what I tell people is like, start with, there's this expression, start with the why. I would say that most directly translates to that fourth piece. What does the world need? So if you start there and you say, what are the big challenges in the world? Okay, great. Now you like at least you've checked off one of those big four check boxes. And then like from there you can say, well, what do you like doing and what are you good at? And you probably know that better than anyone else. And then the fourth piece is, what can you get paid to do? And so when you figured out what does the world need, when you figured out what your skills are and what you like doing, then you can come to a platform like Climatebase, assuming the fourth piece, the why, is like, planetary health. And you can come to our platform and find opportunities where you can actually get paid to leverage your skills and leverage your interests. So so that's my advice. Start with the why. And if that why for you is the environment, the climate, planetary health, life on Earth, hopefully Climatebase can be a great resource for you. I am seeing some questions, like a ton of questions popping up, and I kind of feel bad. Like, I'm not answering them. Should I answer some of them, or how do you want to do this?
So we can answer them at the end with the last 10 minutes. We'll go back through and I can read the questions and we can answer it then. We have about 10 minutes left to interview. So let's finish up the interview section and then we'll move on to the questions.
Cool.
So I just wanted to share a little personal anecdote of what my experience searching for jobs and internships. So at the start of the year, I was looking for a summer internship in sustainability, and I noticed the exact same issues that you were mentioning, where looking on LinkedIn, there was a lot of sustainability jobs, but they were looking for an engineer or a manager or something that wasn't really sustainability. And I really struggled to find that kind of, an internship that really matched what I wanted to do. So I noticed looking through your website, there's a lot of different categories within jobs. So you can really hone in to what category you want, whether it's like the food industry or if it's conservation or, it's just really amazing what you have set up here. And there's a lot of resources for students.
Thank you. I mean, that's awesome. Something else we've thought about is like, our job seekers, okay, so first of all, because I've seen some questions and you're bringing it up, like the experience of using our platform, we're constantly evolving. Like there's so many things that we want to add and change. So like rest assured, if you're using our platform and you're thinking like, wow, like this could be different, this could be better, just know that we're working on it. It's a process. But yeah, like, I think that making sure that we're getting even more internships on there, especially right now, like as, the job market, quite frankly, is not so hot. And there's a lot of students who are like scrambling and figure out their summer plans, their fall plans, if they're taking a gap year, which also I recommend, by the way, if there's any students out there and you're like, damn, I don't know if I want to do all my classes online next year. Honestly, like my recommendation is like, don't. Take the gap year, work on something, work on a project, go intern somewhere for free, like your dream organization. Like just take that time because honestly, like I don't know if it's entirely worth it right now to like do like a whole year's worth of college class online. That's, this is sorry if there's any parents that are watching this, they're like college students who are like cringing at what I'm saying right now, but like I'm a big believer in gap years. I think it's important to take one, and now is the perfect time. But like we regardless, we definitely want to like do more of an emphasis on helping early job seekers get their foot in the door at organizations through internships and entry-level positions.
I would kind of building off the job market right now, it is obviously bad and what's happening is terrible. But I mean, November is going to be huge with the US election in particular. And I know I've seen plans coming out from around the world But Biden, for those who don't know, has actually come out with a fairly strong climate plan, which surprised me at how much more ambitious it is than what he was originally talking about. And he's talking about putting 10 million jobs out there on climate stuff, and dumping $2 trillion into this over the next 4 years if he wins, and even creating this civilian climate corps. So I think in the rest of the world, like the EU has a Green Deal. There's countries all over the world who are really starting to at least think about, if not act on, this economic recovery that's centered in climate action and at its best justice as well. So just building on that, I do think that this space is only going to get bigger and bigger and bigger. So I think everyone here is in a good spot. Just with the last couple minutes before we transfer over to the Q&A.
Yeah, and by the way, I actually, I do have a couple more minutes than I thought originally. So yeah, like I don't actually have anything at the hour anymore. So we can go over if you want.
All right, perfect. We'll keep that in mind. I'd love to hear your thoughts, Evan, kind of building on that, on any trends that you're seeing within the climate jobs space. Specifically, you have it all broken down by these drawdown solutions. Are there any that kind of stick out to you, or anything of noteworthy right now?
I mean, again, like quantitative skills. I know that, I know that's like frustrating to hear if you like don't have like super relevant modern quantitative skills right now, but they're important and you should get them. I think that so like, I mean, one of the trends that we're seeing is like, well, every organization these days basically needs, like every organization at the very least has a web presence. Most organizations provide some interactivity with what they do online. And a lot of the organizations in our platform are also technology organizations, and some of which are software focused organizations. So, and why are, it's not, in my opinion, from an impact perspective, thinking at a personal level, it's not just about like, oh, well, this is the skill that's hot right now, so I need to get it. I would challenge folks to consider like learning quantitative skills. It allows you to scale your own personal impact exponentially, because if you're able to automate a process within your organization, doing some nifty stuff, well, now you've like created a huge cost savings and probably driven a ton of value, and you've probably made yourself indispensable as a result of that. There's I think it's important. Like we're basically like facing this exponential challenge, right? Like we have to like reverse warming and heating, I should say, and that's going to require exponential skills to like combat that. So think about what you can do in your own skill set to enable yourself to have exponential impact in the face of this exponential challenge called the climate crisis. So that's one thing I see. But again, like my big thing for people is like, it's not like you need like one skill set to like have a climate career. It's like, no matter what your skill set is, whether you're an accountant or a lawyer, like there's always a way of leveraging your existing skills and your professional background, or even just your interest if you're new to the job market, and finding an organization where where your skill sets are going to be valuable in the context of a job. So like I don't think everyone needs to be a climate scientist to have a really climate impactful career. So take what I said about learning quantitative skills, like take that with a grain of salt, because yeah, it's good to have, but you don't need it. And that's part of the reason we exist as a platform, is to let people know it's like, you don't need to be a software engineer or a mechanical engineer or a chemical engineer. You don't need to be a climate scientist or researcher or reporter. Like, there are so many avenues in which you can get involved and really have a strong impact.
Yeah, that resonates deeply with me. So I always like to say that no matter who you are or where you're from, you have a unique skill set and relationships and experiences and ideas, and we're gonna need it. Like, everyone has a role to play in this huge transition of society that we need to make happen.
Yeah, like just the other day, you know, I was talking to an employer, and she's based out of LA. She just got funding, so she's working on environmental consulting right now, but she wants to start a carbon negative furniture company. They're basically taking biomass from the hemp industry, cannabis, and like taking all of these, like, you know, unusable pieces, and I guess like pressing them down and turning them into like really sturdy furniture. I have to learn more about what she's doing, but what she's doing sounds really awesome. And like, looking at her advisors that are on board, like, it's pretty reputable people. So like, I can only assume it's legit. And like, she's hiring for like a furniture product designer. I mean, that most people don't think of like being a furniture designer as like a climate career, but it can be. And that's kind of the point of why we exist, is like to say, you know, anyone can find a way of doing this. We exist to make that process easier.
Love that. Okay, wrapping up with a couple last questions before the Q&A. Are there any other specific resources or books you'd recommend people read as they go through this process of thinking through either the transition to sustainability, or like the students who are still trying to figure out where they fit within this big umbrella of opportunities, just to help people, you know, transition and think this through?
You know, I would say it really depends on sort of what your skill sets are, but like, just here, let me pull up my Audible account, and I'll just tell you the climate books that I've been listening to.
Love it.
Because I don't read, apparently. Okay, so this is what I've been jamming out on recently. Okay, well, this is unrelated to climate, kind of, but like, I just started the Too Much and Never Enough book about Donald Trump by Mary Trump. Super fascinating, not entirely related, but kind of related. Also, I am reading Uninhabitable Earth at the moment. I'm like halfway through with that. Super depressing, very scary. And I try to balance out like the scary content that I consume, which I think is important. Like, we can't turn a blind eye. Like, I think it's important to listen to the alarms going off. But I try to balance it out with like things that are a little bit more inspiring. So yeah, so like that one, and On Fire by Naomi Klein. That's another one, sort of in the realm of like kind of scary. But the one that I have like that really kind of like helps keep me calm and like feeling optimistic, and like kind of looking more internally about like what I can do in my own life as an individual is A New Story by Charles Eisenstein. Like, that was one of the first books. That book and Project Drawdown, like those two together, that's what like really got me on the climate sort of kick. And they're both fantastic because they both provide a sense of optimism and hope, and sort of like tangible solutions. You know, Drawdown is looking entirely scientifically at like solutions, and Eisenstein is definitely, he's a little bit more out there, but still provides, I think, a solid sense of like, a very different perspective, very, very different perspective. But like, to me, at least on a personal note, like gave me a sense of like agency, like, and also thinking that like another way that we can all be a part of this, of tackling the climate challenge is by working on how we can change our culture, so that, because like I think a lot of our challenges right now are cultural challenges, and we've essentially become completely divorced of nature. Like, most of us experience life through the built environment, most of us probably listening to this, like, haven't actually had like dirt in their toenails in a really long time. So, I just think it's important to like expose yourself to a lot of different like resources out there, and broadly, and like, aside from like the content and books and stuff, like, just go get out in nature. Cause I think that's like so important. Just like get dirt on your face.
Reconnecting. Love it.
Amazing advice.
Amazing advice. Get dirt on your face. That's going to be like the big takeaway that people get from this.
Awesome. Okay. So Michaela, do you want to jump into this Q&A?
Yes. I'm going to go through the chat and read off the questions that were brought up. Let's see.
A lot of action here. I love it.
Yeah. Do we want to like have some people hop in and like ask the questions, or have?
I think I'll read off the questions that were sent in the chat, and then once we get through those, if anyone wants to ask their question in person, if you can press the little raise hand button in the chat, and I will unmute you.
I'd love to interact with some of the people in real life. I mean, or like not in real life, but like over video, if that's possible.
Yeah, I can also turn on the video. So if anyone has a question, please raise your hand. I believe it's in the chat. Yeah,
there's like a ton of people asking questions, so I don't think I answered any of them so far. So if you did ask a question, like, it's not that we don't want to answer it, just that like we weren't doing that before, but we can now.
All right, so one of the questions I saw from earlier was asking if this is US based only, or if it also includes other part of the world, and they're asking from the UK.
Yeah, so we're heavily focused on the US right now, and that's only because it's just me and my brother and our friend Justin, and like we're super small, and but we really want to focus on other areas of the world as well. I mean, like already you can find jobs in like Indonesia, and I mean here, like if I share my screen, I wonder if this will work. All right, I'm doing it. I'm sharing my screen. So like if I clear this search out real quick, and I go over here and I just say like broadly search, I don't know, let's go like London. Oh, that's London. So hopefully there'll be some positions. Yeah, there's some positions. Another thing that's important, I think, note is like, a lot of the organizations, I mean, and this is like true, I think, for tons of organizations out there, not just climate ones, but like because of COVID, I think it's creating a lot more flexibility in the job market where like you don't necessarily need to be from a specific area to work at a company that's based in that area. So, you'll notice that a lot of the positions on our platform are remote. So this organization, I mean, I know Silvera, they're awesome. They're going to do some amazing, amazing stuff. Like actually, if you're a full stack engineer and you're watching this right now, like check out Silvera. I'm a big fan of their team. But you don't have to work in London. I mean, I think that they probably prefer it, but like you don't need to. So hopefully that answers that question a little bit.
Yeah. All right. Next question I saw was, so this one's asking about your plans to make the job list more searchable, because I know you brought up how LinkedIn does it by keyword. So maybe could you share your screen and show the different categories
Yeah. So like, are we talking like in terms of what are we, in terms of searchability, like what does that mean?
Just so the question asks,
do you want to bring on whoever said it?
Yeah, so this was from Scott Grow, I believe. Let's see if
can we bring Scott on? I feel like this is like a radio show.
Hey.
Like
so I guess in terms of what I was asking about searchability, one of the resources that I've been using most in looking for employment has really been on Ed Carley's list. I sort of mentioned on it. And I really appreciate his breakdown Because I think sometimes we kind of get wrapped up like, okay, there's internships, there's full-time positions, and like, you know, there's part-time. But really in that full-time, I've really appreciated how he delineates and goes like, all right, well, there's entry level, and he just kind of did like a random, like, okay, anything that requires 5 years or younger is like early career, mid-career, late career. Because I really have been, and I guess it kind of connects to the second question that I typed in, of struggling to find positions that are like no experience required or like 1 or 2 years of relevant experience. And, you know, clicking through 5 different positions that are all looking for like 5 years plus, it just starts to get to like, all right, well, I don't know if there's anything here.
Yeah, I totally hear you. Part of the challenge, and this is like getting really into the technical weeds here, is that it actually comes down to like data formatting. So Ed I really need to connect with him actually. Like I know he made a shout out to us in one of his past newsletters, and I was like super flattered. And yeah, I should talk to him because like he's been doing an amazing job of like manually doing this heavy lift. We're trying to like think in terms of like how we can like scale this out, like, you know, like how every week we can have like literally 1,000 new jobs on the platform, and that's hard to do in a way where we can get really clear data on every single organization. So some organizations list their jobs with like years of experience, but it's really hard to like programmatically know what the experience level is for a given job if the employer is providing us with like a data feed of all their jobs. Because like a lot of the jobs on our platform, like we work with employers and they're basically saying like, here's the, you know, like the source of the data so you can import it effectively. We do have a lot of employers that post manually too, but like most of the employers we work with are using applicant tracking systems. So like third-party software tools that allow them to really easily like give us that data. And then, but like, unfortunately, one of the downsides of this is like, it's therefore kind of difficult to be able to, we would have to manually go through every single job that's coming in. And like in a given week, it's like 900 roughly new jobs. So we would have to go through every single job and like read through the description and like tag manually, like how many years of experience are required. Maybe we should bring on an intern. I always feel bad about like, I don't know, making people do such like monotonous, tedious work. But if it's really valuable for our job seekers that we have that data, then like maybe that's something we should do. Yeah, thanks for that feedback.
So Evan, I got another one for you here. Said a couple times by Severio and Natalie. And they're hoping you can dive into more detail on the quantitative skills that you've mentioned a couple times. So maybe just like a few examples of what
there's a fire truck going by now. Could you repeat that again?
Yeah, you got it. A couple people just want to know what the quantitative skills are that you're talking about, or some ideas, suggestions, examples that come to mind for you of good ones to think about or consider.
Yeah, I mean, you know, so just building on what I was saying before, like, you know, in this day and age, even grassroots nonprofit campaigning kind of organizations need to have a digital presence. So, you know, you can not only, like, you will stand out if you're applying to an org like that. You will be able to make yourself more valuable as an applicant if you can help out with anything involving like anything digital. So not just like managing, like, so not just being like a content writer, but if you can actually like help design their website or implement those designs, you know, or even if you don't know how to code, but you can like figure out how to use, you know, content management software and systems, like, you know, like if you get really good at Figma or Webflow and you know, or even just like Squarespace, like honestly, like just being able to say that you can help with that kind of stuff is I think very important for any kind of organization, particularly smaller organizations that like aren't technically like technical organizations. but like, obviously if you're looking at, you know, a lot of the jobs in our platform, like we definitely have more of a climate tech emphasis on sort of, you know, as a platform. And I can like talk about why that is if people are wondering like why there's so many climate tech jobs, but like certainly with those organizations, like.
Hey, Evan, sorry to interrupt. I'm getting a couple comments on your volume got lower. So I can still hear, it's just lower, but maybe speak up a little or something so folks can definitely hear.
Yeah, sorry, I'm not sure why that is. Is it still hard to hear? Is that still an issue?
I would just speak a little louder. I can hear you, but it did get it noticeably lower just in the last like 30 seconds for some reason. But keep trucking through.
Yeah. No, my apologies if I didn't change anything, but sorry if I did. Cool. I'll speak louder. My housemates will love this. Yeah, I was just saying like design skills, software engineering, front end, back end, like all of it is important. Even just getting familiarized with like how it works, I think is really valuable because you know, like everything is technology these days, you know, and I mean, that's kind of like, I mean, not everything, but like every organization has a technology component. At the very least, they have a website. So if you have skills where you can, you know, work on things like this, then that's going to make you stand out, even if you're not professionally a software engineer or a web designer, whatever it might be. Does that kind of answer that question a little bit, or?
I think it's helpful. Definitely helpful just to provide another perspective for folks who don't have that and find it daunting. I mean, I'm going back to what's coming in the works, at least hopefully in the US, is this like climate corps organization, hopefully. And there's a lot of restoration and conservation, hands-on outdoor projects that people may be interested in. So you could start to look at companies working in that space right now if you're intrigued in a different angle of this, if you want to get some dirt under your nails, as we said earlier. But yeah, I think there's a lot of different angles that you can take and build on your existing skill sets and strengths and interests and apply those. And you can always find a way to apply it.
Yeah, like, and again, like I'm saying that these are like good things to have. They're nice to have, but they're not need to haves. And so like my message is not like go learn how to code. It's like, you know, it doesn't hurt. And if you want to do that, then great, you should do that. But you definitely don't need to.
Yeah, find your superpower and build on it. Figure out how to apply it to make it valuable. Awesome. Well, it is 4:00. So Evan, just want to thank you and thank everyone for coming. Some quick housekeeping stuff. We will be sending out the recording. I saw that asked a couple times. We'll also be hopefully answering some of your questions that we didn't get to and sharing some other links so that you can reach out to us afterwards if you want to follow up with anything. I just want to end it with Evan. Where can people find you? And is there any final asks you have of everyone or advice, or how can people help you out in growing Climatebase, this awesome resource? I said a lot there. I apologize, but pick whichever piece you like.
No, that all good. I mean, connect with me on Twitter. You can follow. I think I already said this here, but I'll copy and paste the link.
We'll email it again too.
Okay, awesome. That would be great. Yeah, I mean, you can find me on Twitter. I'm like new on Twitter, so like come be my friend. It's very lonely when you one. Find me on LinkedIn. I don't really use LinkedIn too often, to be honest. So like, but you know, send me a connection. If you're interested in like what we're doing and like you want to help, I mean, there's so much going on, and there's more work than we have to like that we can actually execute on it by ourselves with our team right now. We're entire, like no one's getting paid. I mean, we're generating revenue, so I want to be transparent about that. Like we do, since like we experimented with monetization in like early May, we've gotten to the point of like hitting around like $30,000 is what we project for the year in reoccurring revenue. And so, we're going to be trying to ramp that up a lot more, but for right now, no one is getting paid. We are just trying to cover our costs and stack a little bit of money in the bank for a rainy day. So if you are interested in getting involved at our organization, I mean, anything from like, if you're an intern, if you are a more technical person, you want to help with a product, if you're interested in like helping us with like our newsletters or our media or whatever it might be, like definitely like let us know. We actually have a job post. Let me pull it up right here, and I'll drop a link to it in the chat. We do have a job post. It's very generic. So we kind of kept it that way on purpose because we kind of want people to just like let us know what they can help us with. If you applied to this job post like a month ago, my apologies. Like we haven't had time to actually go through all of the applicants, but just know like we will, and we really need to. So here's the link to that. If you're interested in like getting involved, that'd be awesome. Yeah, just like sign up. Another thing I want to mention, it's not related to like connecting with me, but and we got to do a better job of talking about this on our platform, but we do have a database of, well, it's more of like an index, a directory of talent and candidate profiles. So there's about like a couple thousand people in there right now. We are rolling this out to employers. So employers can like basically get access to this and then like search through and find candidates and look at your profile. And, if they like what they see, then they'll reach out to you. So I would really recommend, like, if you go to climatebase.org, click the community tab. It'll give you an opportunity of creating an account. Select the job seeker account and like create a profile, upload a resume. We turn that into like a digital version of your resume, and we give a profile. Do that because then you'll be visible to employers that are searching through that. And also we'll potentially be opening up these profiles in the future so that like you all can connect with each other too. So anyway, I would recommend creating a profile if you want to get discovered by the employers on our platform.
Love it. Awesome. Well, thank you again, everybody. Evan, especially, thank you so much for joining us. This was a wonderful conversation. I hope folks got a lot out of it. It's looking like they did based on the comments. And keep your eyes open for our follow-up email with the recording, links, and hopefully answering most or all of your questions. So thanks again. Hope everyone has an awesome day.
Yeah, and I just want to say my sincere appreciation for what you're doing, Michaela and Ryan, for organizing. I mean, this is awesome. I'm so happy that you wanted me to come on and talk about this. And thank you all for hanging out with us for over an hour now. I wish we could actually hang out, but this will happen. So thank you.
Well, I'll get together sometime, hopefully, when this ends. Yeah.
Sorry, one final thing. If you like what we're doing at Climatebase, like the biggest thing that you can do to help us, because like we need help, we're growing, and the more people that use our platform, the more valuable our platform is. So the way that we get more people getting climate positive jobs is more people using our platform. So the number one thing that you can do to help us is literally just share us with your friends. Make a post about us on Facebook. That, like, I swear that goes so far. It's so important. If you're on Twitter, post there too. Why not? Instagram, I don't know. Like, what are the kids into? TikTok? Is that banned? But like, yeah, like, TikTok about us. I don't know. Is there, I don't know the terminology for these things yet. But like, seriously, like, please share us with your friends, because that's the most important thing you can do for us. And, for all, like, who knows, like maybe you'll help get someone a job that is climate impactful. And I think that's, really what the world needs right now. So
that is a fantastic note to end on. All right. Thank you all again. Hope everyone has a wonderful day. Take care.
Bye,
Thanks, everyone.